There are moments in football that stop the world, and then there are moments that split it. Tonight at this World Cup was both at the same time. Lionel Messi, 38 years old, in his sixth World Cup, the defending champion, the man who lifted the trophy in Qatar in 2022 with tears running down his face and the weight of a career finally fully lifted, walked out into a stadium in the United States tonight against Algeria and Argentina's opening group match and produced one of the most extraordinary individual performances in the history of this tournament. A hat trick, 3 goals. In the process, he equaled Miroslav Klose's all-time record of 16 World Cup goals, a record that has stood since 2014, a record the German icon thought was safe, and one Messi has now matched at the age of 38 in what is almost certainly his final World Cup. The first goal was a clinical finish in the 28th minute after a precise team move. The second was his trademark curled effort from the edge of the box just before halftime, the kind of strike that has ended careers and broken hearts across 4 decades of elite football. The third was a calm penalty in the 67th minute, and the record was his. Argentina 3, Algeria 0, the defending champions making the statement their opening match demanded. That is the football story. It is extraordinary. It deserves every word spent on it. But tonight did not belong to the football alone, because in the same match, in the same 90 minutes, something else happened that has sent the football world into a debate that will run for days. Messi caught Algerian center back Issa Mandi with a challenge that stopped the match. His studs made contact with the back of Mandi's calf, dragging down from the knee to the ankle. Mandi went down. He needed treatment. He was able to continue. Referee Simon Marciniak, the Polish official who took charge of the 2022 World Cup final between Argentina and France, awarded a foul. He did not reach for a yellow card. He did not show red. He did not even give a caution. And VAR reviewed the challenge and chose not to step in, deciding there was no clear and obvious error in the on-field decision. Within minutes, social media was producing the kind of reaction that told you right away this was not simply a disputed call. It was a moment that connected to everything people have been feeling about this tournament, this institution, and its relationship with its most famous players. One post said simply, "Just give Argentina the trophy." Another used one word to describe the decision: rigged. That word spread across platforms in multiple languages before the final whistle had even blown. So what is really happening here? Not just tonight, but in the full context of VAR, at this World Cup, the pattern of officiating decisions around football's most protected players, and what the Messi challenge tells us about the system that was supposed to end arguments and instead seems to be creating new ones. Let's start with the specific details of the incident, because the argument is not simply that the challenge looked bad. It is about what VAR is supposed to do when a challenge looks bad. The laws of the game are clear about when a red card is required. Excessive force, serious foul play, violent conduct. The definition of serious foul play is when a player makes a tackle or challenge that puts an opponent's physical safety in danger by using excessive force or brutality. Studs making contact with the back of a calf, dragging from the knee down to the ankle, is exactly the kind of challenge that definition was written to cover. It is the kind of contact that, if it had been done by an unknown substitute in a group stage match between 2 smaller nations, would bring a VAR review, a pitch side monitor visit, and almost certainly a red card. Former Manchester City and England under 21 defender Needham Onyaha, watching the replays, said what millions of people watching were thinking. He said he thought it should have been a red card, in his opinion. He said it felt like the moment was missed. He added, with the careful precision of someone who knows exactly what he is saying and who he is saying about, that it does play into that narrative that these players get a different kind of treatment. He said Marciniak was not called over to look at the incident. He said that, as much as he loves Messi, the challenge was clumsy, it was bad, and dragging down the back of someone's calf all the way from the knee to the ankle justified a red card. That verdict, given calmly on the record by a former professional and analyst on a major broadcast platform, is the one that matters most here. Not the Twitter posts, not the rigged comments. The specific, technical, on-record judgment from someone with the professional knowledge to make it. That was a red card, and VAR agreed there was nothing worth reviewing. Here is the interesting part, because this is not the first VAR controversy at this World Cup. It is the third, And the pattern across all three is what makes tonight so important. The first came in the Switzerland-Qatar match. A penalty was awarded to Switzerland after a foul on Remo Freuler. An offside check was done. The penalty stood. The decisive visual evidence was never shown to the watching world. Gary Neville said it was offside until someone proved him wrong. Ian Wright called it scandalous. The governing body announced a decision without showing the reasoning. The second came in the same Argentina-Algeria match tonight, but from the other side. Algeria had what looked to many watching like a real goal ruled out by VAR for a very close offside call early in the match. A close call that went against a team that would then watch their captain's dangerous challenge on an Algerian defender go unpunished by that same VAR system. Both decisions in the same game, both controversial, both going in Argentina's favor. The Messi challenge and the Algeria offside reversal in the same 90 minutes, with the same referee, Simon Marciniak, the man who took charge of the 2022 World Cup final in which Argentina beat France. The man whose appointment to tonight's match, given Argentina's status as defending champions and Messi's profile as the tournament's most celebrated player, was always going to put every decision under the highest possible level of scrutiny. That combination, two VAR decisions in the same match, both helping Argentina, one involving the most famous player in the world being part of a challenge that analysts said should have been a red card, have produced exactly the reaction the football world was ready to produce. The trust gap that Gary Neville pointed to after the Switzerland-Qatar incident, the deep institutional doubt that has built up across months of decisions that felt designed to serve the tournament's commercial interests more than the honesty of its football. It found tonight's incidents and attached itself to them with the force of everything that came before. Now here's the context that must be stated clearly, because honesty has to work both ways. The VAR standard for stepping in is clear and obvious error, not a different interpretation. Not a case where the on-field decision can be argued about, but clear and obvious error that the referee has missed. The argument for not stepping in is that Marciniak had a real-time view, judged the challenge in the moment, and decided it did not reach the red card level. VAR reviewed the same footage and found no clear and obvious error in that judgment. That is the system working the way it was designed to work, giving power to the on-field official unless the error is impossible to deny. The argument against is that clear and obvious is not the right standard for a challenge like this, that studs into the back of a calf, dragging from knee to ankle, is exactly the kind of physical danger the red card rule was created to stop. That the clear and obvious error standard was never meant to protect a challenge that hurts an opponent through direct stud contact from behind and below. That if the footage had been shown to a panel of qualified officials without telling them whose challenge it was, the verdict would have been different. Those two arguments exist at the same time. They are both defensible. What is not defensible, what the football world has correctly identified as a central problem, is the appearance that the standard being used is not consistent for all players. That the threshold for clear and obvious error works differently when the player involved is Lionel Messi scoring a hat trick in his sixth World Cup, equaling the all-time goals record in Argentina's opening match as defending champions. The appearance of inconsistency is just as damaging to the tournament's integrity as actual inconsistency. And tonight, that appearance was there for everyone to see. Think about what the hat trick means on its own, separate from all of this, because it deserves its own respect completely independent of the controversy. 16 World Cup goals, level with Miroslav Klose, a record that looked unreachable when Klose set in Brazil in 2014, because to match it, you would need to be Messi, still playing at 38, still a World Cup, still capable of this level. The first goal from distance, the kind of technique most players do not even try from that range in a World Cup group match. The second, the curled effort before halftime that reminded everyone why the word Messi exists in football vocabulary. The third, the calm the penalty, absolute. This is a 38-year-old man playing his sixth World Cup in what is almost certainly his last tournament at this level. The Inter Miami captain who left European club football and came to Major League Soccer in what looked like the closing chapter of his story. And then he scored a World Cup hat trick to equal the all-time record and reminded the watching world that the closing chapter he is writing is still extraordinary. Kylian Mbappe had scored twice for France in their 3-1 win over Ivory Coast earlier on the same day. The The golden boot race between Messi and Mbappe, the two players whose rivalry has defined football's past decade, is alive at the very first chance. Both scored multiple goals on day 6 of this tournament. The contrast in the competition between them is one of the real sporting stories of 2026. But here's the bigger issue that tonight's controversy brings into sharp focus. The VAR system was brought into football with one clear promise: to remove human error from the biggest moments, to make sure that a referee's missed call in real time would be caught and corrected before play moved on, to create a fairer game where the biggest decisions were right no matter how they looked in the moment. That was the promise. It was a meaningful promise. It answered a real problem. What the 2026 World Cup has shown across 6 days of football is that VAR has created new problems alongside the old ones. The problem of perception. When the system works with transparency, when it shows a decisive frame, explains the reasoning, and gives the watching world the evidence on which the decision was based, it can build confidence. When it works in the dark, when it reviews a challenge and finds no clear and obvious error, without showing why, when decisions keep helping the tournament's most commercially valuable team in the same game, it does not remove the suspicion of bias. It makes it worse, because now there's a system with institutional power whose decisions can be pointed to as evidence of planned outcomes, instead of simply the mistakes of human officials that everyone understood and accepted as part of the game. Tonight's match between Argentina and Algeria will be remembered for Messi's hat trick. That is right and that is fair. What happened in the stadium in Dallas was truly extraordinary in football terms on an individual level. But it will also be remembered for Issa Mandy lying on the ground after studs dragged down his calf, and Simon Marciniak walking away without a card, and VAR not stepping in, and social media exploding with one word: rigged. That word is not a verdict. It is a feeling, and feelings like this specific, widely shared, building across multiple matches, across multiple decisions, across the full context of a tournament that arrived with more institutional baggage than any World Cup in recent memory, are not erased by pointing to the clear and obvious error standard. They are answered by transparency, by showing the evidence, by making the reasoning visible, by treating the audience of this tournament like people who deserve to understand why decisions were made, not just what those decisions were. What do you think? You have watched enough football to know the difference between a truly close call that reasonable people can disagree on, and a decision that cuts through the usual complexity and simply feels wrong at a level that does not need analysis to explain. Which of those categories does tonight's Messi incident fall into for you? And does the fact that Argentina also benefited from a marginal VAR offside reversal in the same match change the way you read the challenge decision? And here's the question that matters beyond tonight. If FIFA's VAR system cannot produce the transparency needed to make its decisions believable in the most watched match of the tournament's first week, involving the most famous player in the world, what is the system actually for?